Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Evolving Practice Podcast. My name is Dr. Bill Moss, and I'm with my co-host,
Hi, I'm Dr. Sean Carey.
And we're excited to have you on this episode. We're going to be diving into some myth busting, if you will, over the course of the next couple episodes, where we break down some of the, misnomers and the misunderstandings regarding healing expectations, because a lot of times people put expectations on how this is supposed to go when they're on their healing journey. And we're going to talk about on this episode specific to, beliefs and belief-based myths that people have regarding, what they can come to and arrive at once they're, quote, experiencing healing. We're going to be doing this over the series of a couple different episodes. We're going to look at like practice and client-based myths. We're going to be looking at beliefs, maybe even the spiritual side, some myths about spiritual and energetic healing. So we're excited to kind of break down some of these myths that are existing in the public.
Yeah, it's a really exciting topic, and I'm extra excited for this one because beliefs are just such a cornerstone as far as our life. They have such a profound impact on our day-to-day life, on our relationships, even the thoughts that we think, and they're so hidden in the background. So, it's very easy to adopt beliefs, and then they can just sit there not serving us for our whole lives if we let them.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm excited to do this because I've been looking at my own beliefs more and more. And I think whenever you're looking to progress and get better in life and heal, it's natural to see what's going on in your mind, what's going on between the ears and what keeps coming up. And beliefs about what is possible is really a powerful thing. And we've talked about it on this show, but even my belief in healing, like I didn't have a natural health background, if you will. Early on, I was very much brought up in a medicalized family, which that just became a belief system I adopted, for better or worse. But then I started to see differences and limitations, but the beliefs can really keep us kind of inside the box, if you will. And we use that term a lot with episodes. So let's get into it. We're going to kind of keep these a little shorter and dirty, I guess you could say. I don't think we'll curse a lot. That doesn't typically our shtick, but how about this idea of like, if I heal enough, I'll never get triggered again. So this is myth number one. Like if you heal enough, I'll never get triggered again. What do you have to say about that, Sean?
Well, I think that's not true. And if even Jesus like got angry with the money changers outside the temple,
Yeah.
and so there's this it connects to this idea that if you're spiritual, or if you're healed, like you're just not going to experience life. You're not going to have any type of negative emotion or response to things. Like, yeah, there's going to be things that even if you're healed, like there's going to be things that go wrong. Maybe the car breaks down, you get upset, or somebody passes away, or you're sick. Like, part of life is just that there are things that happen that aren't fun for us. We can still learn and grow from them.
Yeah. Yeah, they're kind of like the sign of new awareness, if you will, right?
Yeah.
It's like any of these things, we have these emotions that come up. And I remember my wife always described, I think this would frustrate me back in the day, where it was almost like she wanted me to always remain within a controlled state, if you will, right? Like not get too excited, not get too disappointed. So you're just like this blended person who doesn't experience emotions or the swings of life. And I think the swings are what make it kind of beautiful. So it's not like getting triggered is the worst thing in the world. Now, if you're very quickly triggered, right? And easily triggered, that tends to be, that we all know what that looks like, and that tends to be problematic. But the idea that like your life is is quantified by how little triggers you have. But they do give us signs, right? The less triggered we are about things that used to bug us, the more we've actually healed. So they do help us
Yeah.
understand the how far we've come along this journey, and things that used to bother us years ago tend to be less of a big deal. But if the only goal is to once I arrive, then I will not be triggered again, you're not really living in reality.
Totally. I think a better viewpoint, a better marker for people is being able to say, okay, like I'm experiencing negative emotion, or I'm experiencing a trigger. How fast can I let it go?
Hmm.
Because it's not good to not really have a negative emotion about anything. Like that would mean the person's probably disconnected from reality.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's you also don't want to be like, okay, like this thing happened 8 months ago, and I'm still, like obsessing about how that thing went wrong.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we certainly do want to heal. But we
Yeah.
also want to be able to be responsive in the moment, and then we can learn and adapt and grow and all those things.
Yeah. Yeah, this kind of leads into like myth number 2 that we have on here, which is this idea of good vibes only, right?
Yeah,
Um, that's the philosophy. Like only good vibes. Like I only want to experience positivity, only want to experience good vibes, and that's the way it's going to be. So you're kind of bypassing any negative situations, negative emotion, negative
yeah,
people. We're just going to have it good vibes only from here. And, my biggest, maybe to kick this off, my biggest problem with this one is that's very subjective. Of
mhm,
like, who's good vibes? Whose definition of
yeah.
what good vibes is, at the forefront of that.
I think it's one of the easiest ways people get misdirected too, is this one in particular, because it's such an entrancing philosophy, or
Mhm.
really more of an ideology.
Mhm.
But it's just rife with problems. Like we do live in a world where negative things can happen,
Yeah.
and we always need to have like both eyes open so that we can respond appropriately. Like an example I'd use is a week ago I hurt my leg. I was hiking,
Mm.
and somehow the stick got stuck in my leg, so I had to go to urgent care. And we were actually supposed to record that night. We had to reschedule, and then they bandaged it up and cleaned everything out and got the stick out and this whole process. But in the healing of it, I had to be aware and keep checking my leg to make sure it wasn't getting infected, and it was healing properly.
Mm.
And like we have to know that that's something that can happen, so that we can respond accordingly. Like if I wasn't like, oh, if it's just an impossibility that my leg could be infected, like you can really set yourself up for failure that way. and,
Yeah.
and people do that with health stuff all the time. Like
Yeah.
the one of the worst things we say one of the most dangerous things in chiropractic is that one of the most dangerous sentences is somebody saying, I just assumed it would get better on its own, but they
Mm.
hold on to that for 20 years.
Yeah. And I've experienced this over the course of the last couple years. We've had to use like more medical intervention, and my wife was, I don't think I really talked about it, but she was hospitalized a couple months ago for having pneumonia, and it was basically a flu that turned into pneumonia, bacterial pneumonia, which turned into sepsis, a bacterial infection, and it was very mismanaged with she's also pregnant, so people didn't, I don't want to say they didn't take her seriously, but because she's a very positive person, and our
Yeah.
doctor kind of joked, she blinded people with her halo, like, oh,
Mm.
you're okay. So it's like her energetic expression was almost like, I got this. People didn't kind of take her serious enough. And if we were just like, only good vibes around this, we would have been denying reality again. We would have been
Yeah.
denying reality that like this is the state of where we are. And though we can bring a positive swing to it, it's understanding that like uh, bad things can occur, and we have to handle them with a different way, not just being positive. It also means being real. It's not like I didn't took an attitude of like this isn't going to work out or this isn't
Right.
going to turn, but the reality is like we need some intervention. We need people to act now, not like, oh, everything's going to work out whatever they think and however the doctors want to treat and whatever, and we don't have to really that wasn't the kind of mode or the mood that was necessary to help in this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. What an important lesson that is for people. We really need to have awareness.
Mhm.
Otherwise, like we're just so susceptible to anything that's out there. It would be like you just driving your car and pretending it's only going to be sunny, or
Yeah,
or like
I'll
or
take
like
the top. I'll take the
yeah.
top off my Jeep because I know the weather's going to be great today.
Yeah, yeah. So there's like a naivete to when people, they do that. And there's a huge difference between just pretending it's like good vibes only versus like we can redirect an experience where you have a negative experience, or
Mhm.
you have something where it's like turning lemons into lemonade. You can be like,
Yeah.
okay, this experience wasn't my favorite thing, but here's what we learned. And because of that, it became this good thing because I got this
Yeah.
lesson out of it. Like
Yeah.
that's very different. And it also requires us to face reality. Like if you're just stuck in
Mhm.
this good vibes only place, you're not probably seeing the world accurately around you.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, you can't there I mean, Facebook could use more good vibes only,
Yeah,
Facebook and
that's true.
Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah,
There's not typically like healthy discourse, but I think that's sometimes what this good vibe only is like, well, let's not talk about anything that's bad
right.
and let's ignore it. And that's not healthy to ignore the reality of what's going on, whether that's a symptom that's occurring, whether
Yeah,
that's your financial situation, that's a relationship, that's the elephant in the room. It's not good to just like ignore those and have good vibes only. Like difficult conversations need to occur in this life. And there are these troughs and ups and downs in healing. And oftentimes I'll even draw like a straight line upward for somebody is like, hey, you're here. We want to get to
yeah,
here. And in this first, phase of healing is going to look like X, Y, or Z. And then the next phase is going to look like A, B, and C. And I use the straight line. And then I very quickly, I'm like, well, it's more like ups and downs and
yeah,
going up and getting stuck because that's kind of how it works. And you want to have your head on straight, if you will, going through those things. But the reality is you're not going to just like beat it with positivity, and not everything's going to be won just because of that. It will give us the courage to kind of face those things, and sometimes, and it's good to have positive people around you that you can get through things, but it's not like don't bring the reality to the situation. I think that's when we say good vibes only. It's kind of like don't bring the reality to the situation. It's like keep that away from here because we'd rather live in Glitterland with rainbows and dust and unicorns
right.
at this time. Yeah.
Yeah. And we say this as people who like really like I get how important imagination is, and
Yeah.
and positive thinking is, and the ability to redirect things and put
Hmm.
a positive
Hmm.
shine to it. But first, before you can do that, like before you can redirect something, you have to acknowledge reality. And
Yeah.
imagination is like we want to use that as a power, as a tool to create visualization and those things. But we still have to deal with the reality that's in front of us.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah, I think it's a really important one because it's like if somebody gets a serious diagnosis to just like ignore it and be positive, that's not really it's kind of ignorance, if you will. But if you
Yeah.
positively address the upcoming challenge, that's the way to do it, whether it be a personal health condition or something else that needs addressing and healing. It can be a conversation, right? Like because often if bringing up difficult conversations never feels like good vibes. We've all had to have
Yeah.
like difficult
Yeah.
conversations within relationships, within marriages and significant others, and in business. And
Yeah.
that does to me that never feels good. I don't love doing that, but afterwards, there's usually this like release and growth and new level of understanding between the two parties when that type of interaction occurs. So they are really important as part of the healing journey.
Absolutely. Well, I think that should bring us probably to myth number 3, which is once I find the right modality, everything will click. And I think people are they're always looking for that next shiny thing. I had somebody reach out to me yesterday, like a new client who's really been struggling with something for a long period of time, a serious struggle for over 10 years. And we just had this very, very brief conversation, but I haven't gone to meet this person in person yet. We haven't had a chat on the phone. It was very brief via text. And they're
Mhm.
like, oh, like, how much will this cost? And it's like, I don't know. I don't really know what's going on with you. Like, I haven't met you. It's not like ordering a pizza.
Yeah.
And we can just be like, here. you do that one thing and everything's fixed, and you're never going to be triggered. You're never going to be
Yeah.
upset. You're never going to have pain or sorrow again. It goes back to, somebody being like, I want to live in this utopia of just good vibes only. Like, can you get me there? And it's
Yeah.
like, no, we can't, because you're a human and you're in a world where there's negativity sometimes.
Yeah, it's kind of like a magic bullet syndrome, right?
Yeah,
And people are obsessed with this. I don't know where it came from exactly,
yeah,
but I mean, even the roots of our profession were very like one cause, one cure. And the one cause, one cure is you, you are kind of like the key and the answer in the
yeah,
end. But again, when it's like, there are these people that never are content with like, not every modality is to serve the same purpose. Chiropractic is
yeah,
not meant to be your nutrition. It just isn't.
yeah,
It isn't
absolutely.
meant to replace food. It isn't meant to replace connections and relationships. It's about connection with the nervous system and performance of the nervous system of the human being. We have many different energy healing modalities. Energy healing work is not meant to replace chiropractic, and
Yeah,
chiropractic is not meant to replace energetic healing work. And nutrition is not meant to, replace an adjustment or a C1. I think we get too caught up in like, it's okay to have a package
yeah,
of things you do to become healthy and express. And honestly, in the chiropractic profession, it's whenever somebody has a business that's other than chiropractic, there's always like a little, but it's wellness or health related. People get a little bit bent out of shape or tripped up about that, where it's like that a whole person isn't just one that uses one thing. Like that doesn't, oh,
yeah,
I use chiropractic, therefore I am a great parent. It's not, it's not the same. There might be some skills outside of there that you need to get. So there isn't one modality for everything, but there are right modalities for certain situations. A hundred
yeah.
percent.
Absolutely. And it's likely that the person over the course of a lifetime, there's going to be many things that could be the best thing at different times.
Yeah.
I see people fall into the same trap with energetic healing too, where it's like,
Mhm.
everything is energy. Like, sure, like on a quantum level, of course, everything's energy. But in terms of like practicality, like if, your leg's hurting, like that doesn't necessarily mean that the solution is energetic healing.
Yeah.
The solution might be like you need to go to physical therapy, or or acupuncture or chiropractic, or see an orthopedic, or whatever. Like there's different things that might be very much appropriate for that situation, because
Mhm.
that's different forms of energy too.
Yeah.
You're like, surgery moves energy, acupuncture moves energy.
Yeah.
Energy. If we're just gonna put blankets around those things, like everything would be energetic healing, but
Yeah.
it's different.
That's a good point. I actually had a conversation with a woman today. She's 72 years old, and she came to see me. Last week was her assessment. And the main reason she kind of came, she had multiple things going on, but I think this story is pretty good for this topic. She had an ankle that was a real big problem over the last 6 months. She also had a hip. Well, no, she didn't mention a hip. She had an opposite knee issue, the same side as the ankle knee issue. And she also had like a groin pain.
Mm,
And you could tell the way she was walking, it was just like her posture was just crippled in this very inefficient way. And she basically kind of like hurt her leg and had some sciatic pain because she went to pick up like an Amazon box and she like almost dropped it. And when she almost went to drop it, she made this quick reaction, and then she kind of had all these problems. Well, so I took I took some x-rays of her upper, her lower,
yeah.
and we sat down and had a conversation. And her hip is like completely bone on bone too. And that
Mm,
doesn't even bother her, but it is on that side. And I'm like, listen, I really think your whole story is you're biomechanically very off, and
yeah.
you've been compensating in many ways, and you received an injection over here and this diagnosis of tendonitis over here. I'm like, listen, I don't think there's just one way or adjustment, or I think I'm the best person to like help you start to get this moving in the right direction, but I don't think I'm going to be the only thing you need in this whole thing. Like, and she
Yeah.
really respected me because I was like, we're going to start here, and this is how I'm going to work, and this is going to be our goals, and I'm going to be working in these areas. And And she kind of really got it. I was like, otherwise you can go to like 4 different doctors to try to like manage each one of these unique aspects. But I
Yes.
kind of took a more thorough look and was like, I think your frame kind of influenced what happened, and what happened is also influencing your frame. Why don't we start here and then we'll go from there. Because I knew that it's like there wasn't one right perfect modality in this equation, but I understood the tools I'm going to use to best serve her so we can at least start somewhere. And I think that's kind of the point. Sometimes people are scared to start because they want the modality to be the finished, to create the total finished product. But
Yeah.
sometimes you don't know that until you start moving in the direction of healing with something to figure out where else to go.
Yeah. And you're generally much better like starting something and moving in, a forward direction than
Yeah.
trying to like wait to find the exact thing that's gonna make sense in this ideological story.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So myth number 4 is healers should always feel high vibe or spiritually on in their work. This is a tighter one because I do believe we have an obligation to serve people, um and a lot of times within the service it kind of helps us stay in that. But I think the
Yeah.
reality is you can't always be at the same level, right? It's
Yeah.
just not it's just
Yeah.
not going to happen.
Totally. Yeah. And we need to know ourselves, right? And know like what you can do at different times, and then also recognize like when you need support. Like I'm more of an introvert by nature, so it's like there's just a certain amount of kind of like downtime or alone time that I need to function at my best the other time.
Hmm.
And two, like just part of doing the work, part of being in the world, like even with the work we do as energetic healers, like one of the things I have to do on a regular basis, and you do, is we get energetic cleanup where people help us, clear energy that gets stuck to us because we also live in the world.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
there is this piece of like, yeah, we need. Um, there's a rhythm to things. There's a rhythm to like stepping forward, and then a rhythm to stepping back and receiving. And if you don't have that rhythm, you're gonna burn out and you're gonna break apart.
Yeah. Yeah. Like even doing this podcast, you have no idea how often what the hell should we do? But like you get kind of these pockets of stuckness where the creativity,
Yeah,
um maybe like I get worn out by some of the details in the paper. Like if I had more paperwork to do, or outsourcing of and communication between other practitioners, and some of that stuff can really kind of work. Or somebody's really going through something and they need more like time and direction and those sort of things. Healing, like, people can kind of pull our energy away. So especially when you live with other people. I was joking this last week. When you're a person who's usually at like a 9, let's say, if you're at a 7, everyone thinks something's wrong with you.
yeah,
The wiggle, like if I'm a 7, my staff or my clients are like, is something wrong? But no, there's just different tasks that kind of can put us into different states. But I always, by knowing thyself, kind of like you said, you can know what helps you get back to that state of high energy, and when to conserve. I think conserving
yeah,
energy is very important. And even in our profession, like chiropractors traditionally work like more like 3 or 4 days a week, and the public will like laugh at that and be like, oh, these people, they have bankers hours and they take lunch breaks and stuff. But until you work in the capacity that we do with individuals in close proximity to their stuff, it's hard to describe the level of recovery that is necessary to do your best work.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's the you take a baseball player or something like that. Like there's a lot of training, a lot of recovery that goes into being able to play a baseball game.
Yeah.
For playing 4 hours, there's maybe a week of recovery needed. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you really have to honor that process as far as like to be a spiritual healer and to be able to lift people up to the frequencies that we can. It does take a tremendous amount of work. So we need to be able to make sure that we recharge.
Yeah, because the people kind of deserve our high vibe when we have to be, when
Yeah.
we are serving, if in an energetic capacity, in a chiropractic capacity, and even working with our team. And I think team get to see that, not low moments, but they get to see that lesser moments and understand like it is a pendulum and there's a crescendo. And that's kind of makes the music, right? Music is great when you have contrasts and surprises and build ups and that sort of thing. And I think our life can kind of emulate that as a healer, where you do have these down times and meditative time, reflective times. So we have the ability to actually bring energy and hold space when we need to. And you can't do that all the time. It's not
Yeah.
sustainable. And we've all tried to do that, where we just try to sustain this level of service and energy. And I've hit the tipping point where that's just not feasible anymore for myself, my own health, and
Yeah.
really the relationships within my family. So we have to find that balance. And I have to say, I'm always probably refining that, like on a almost weekly basis, definitely on a
Yeah.
monthly basis, but trying to kind of cultivate that so I can be at my best. But yeah, it's a big thing.
Absolutely. And but it's so important, because if that piece isn't there, like you might make it across the finish line, but you can do it like burnt out alone, not with the wheels falling off the car. So we need to make
Yeah,
sure all those pieces stay together by doing what you're talking about.
for
And
sure.
the fifth myth we have is that if it's not dramatic or emotional, it didn't work. And I think
Uh,
sometimes people, they do want things to be just like have this big pizzazz to it. And it's often not that. It's for one person, it might be like the headaches. They just woke up one day and they're not there anymore. For somebody else, it might be like they're not obsessing about their ex anymore, or the situation
mhm,
that happened in the past.
mhm,
And it doesn't have to be dramatic in any way. It's just like almost they're used to living a certain way, and then there's just this 10-degree change. But that 10
mhm,
degree change is a massive movement in the right direction as far as a
mhm.
cumulative effect on their life and joy.
Yeah, I even struggle with that sometimes when I teach when I teach Empower Thyself, like, because I did kind of have some very dramatic turnarounds in my life through some of the work. And
Yeah.
it's hard. Yeah, I think it's important to express like how drastic that was and how I knew, by the contrast and the turnaround and the change and what people saw in me and what I experienced in myself and things that I turned around real quickly. It was dramatic, but it was also a very big resolution. But I also try to uh, acknowledge that doesn't have to be a scenario for everybody.
Yeah.
And more often than not, like when I do healing work with people, I really like to redirect them to look for where you see this difference in your life within the things you do on the most regular basis, with
Mm,
relationships you have most regularly,
yeah.
because then you start to know, and you're not looking for these big shifts and changes. And when we start people within chiropractic, a lot of times I'm like, the biggest thing that changes regardless of what symptoms you have or what you're coming in here for is most people sleep a little bit better. And
Yeah.
I don't know what that means for you, but just pay attention to it. Most people feel like they carry themselves differently with their posture. Most people notice that they just have a greater awareness of how their body's moving through the day. And those are the little things that when you notice them early and often, you will adapt to them, but then you still know them because they
Yeah.
happened at the beginning. And we might have talked about this on another podcast, or I said this recently to somebody, is that we don't celebrate enough the people that just stayed well, or
Yeah.
overcame small little challenges along the way. We celebrate too often these like big drastic
Yeah.
accomplishments from the grave to like the mountaintop.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so well said, and that was such a huge lesson for me too. And another point on this one is that For us to go in the wrong direction, oftentimes it's small slip ups that happen. Like it's not like a massive, might not be a massive shift for a person where like they go off track because they had like this car accident or something like that. Like that
Mhm.
happened for me. Like that was a huge. I had a bad car accident that really impacted my life and caused a lot of change. But for somebody else, it could be they just go drink too much at a birthday party, and then they like start drinking too much again, or a couple drinks here, a couple drinks there. Uh, Same thing with sugar and those types of things. The sabotage or the being off track can be very easy. Uh,
Yeah. And I guess we all have different contracts and how we want to learn our lessons. Like sometimes it's
yeah,
like these bigger things. Maybe that's how I am from time to time because sometimes it's been big shifts. But I really enjoy noticing the little things in life, how they change along the way, because I think that's sustainable on a daily basis. And it's kind of like when you just start having better habits in a day. Um, you have these like subtle emotional shifts and changes that really make long-term lasting change. So I think that's a big thing is like not everything has to be dramatic, and oh, I felt so different and I opened up
yeah,
like a flower and my whole life unfolded. It's like, I don't know, man. And I think that's why people get addicted to like psychedelics for the experience because
yeah,
they're just like chasing this immense high and like subtly developing into their deeper senses is like we want it all now and yesterday that
yeah,
we're not ready for that in many
yeah.
levels. We're just not. We have to grow into um the bigger aspects of the self. So
It's
yeah.
interesting for our work as teachers because sometimes we're teaching a class and maybe we're doing like something like sanctuary meditation, where we teach
Mm,
people this like profound technique to connect with your higher self through sacred geometry, and there's a process that you do. But sometimes you'll have somebody in the class where like that person is like having an incredible experience with like an archangel. And then somebody else who's like, oh, I didn't, see anything. Like I couldn't visualize any of the geometries. I couldn't do it. And for each person, like being there at the front of the room, looking at people's energy, it's like, nope, you're good too. Like the everything's moving properly. Like you connected to the energies properly. Like you're good. One's not necessarily better than the other. Um, one might be more fun than the other, but it doesn't mean that that's necessarily better long term. That the other one didn't have the effect it needed to.
yeah. No, that's such a good point because that does happen more often than not. And I've actually gotten feedback from a lot of my clients in that teaching world is they enjoy the fact that they've been to these things where people have over traumatized like their experience and they're like, I just didn't have that. And it's like, we're all at different points in development and I've given variety of different answers, but we all sense in very different ways and we
Yeah,
all are open up to experiences at when we're ready for them in many ways. And for me, I've had more profound changes. I've had subtle ones. I've had ones that I was like, I don't even know if that did anything for me. But then when you reflect back along the way, you're like, oh yeah, that was a big shift. So
yeah,
I think this kind of ties into like once I find the right modality, this conversation that we're having is like, the forward progress is ultimately usually the way, and just one thing will help open up to other things.
yeah,
So really, what we're describing is everything is a progression and like a final product. All these expectations or these beliefs and myths usually revolve around this idea that there's this final product that's like doesn't require any more work.
yeah.
And if you just get it
Totally.
right to perfection, right, then everything will be good. And that's if that's what somebody's promising you, they're probably promising you something that's um is not real, it's not true,
Yeah,
and it allow it can it sh- you should be a little bit skeptical. So I think this was a topic to kind of explore. We have plenty more myths to talk about on other episodes, but good thing because healing does have a lot of myths that surround modalities and just the generalities. And
yeah. Oh, yeah. Such a great and important conversation.
yeah,
Yeah,
so we look forward to the first of our series of a couple. We're going to be looking at some of the client practitioner myths in our next episode coming up. But thanks so much for being here in this this was a little shorter and quicker and dirty topic, but actually there was a lot to say. So maybe we went a little further than we thought we would originally. But take a moment to rate, review, share this with another person, share it with somebody who is doing healing work, experiences people who have created a lot of myths, and maybe we can help them also myth bust along the way.
Have a great day. Thanks for listening.